If you agree that no uniform ever loses its meaning, and that respect should never depend on status, make sure to like and subscribe. Because this story isn't about glory or rank, it's about the quiet weight of duty that never really leaves. They called him Old Dusty, the janitor who shuffled through City Hall's echoing marble corridors each morning like a forgotten relic with a mop in one hand and a rusted key ring on his belt that jingled softly with every step. His name was Joseph Miles, at least, that's what his ID tag said, but to the young aides, interns, and smirking middle managers with too much time and not enough awareness, he was a joke. He worked the third floor, always the third, and always started before the sun came up, cleaning the same hallway twice, like muscle memory from a life no one thought to ask about. Some mornings, Tyler Riggins, the mayor's swaggering assistant, would sip his overpriced coffee and toss out comments just loud enough. "You missed a spot, Sergeant Swiffer," or "Make sure you mop up those war stories too, Grandpa." Others laughed because that's what people do when they're too young to know what silence hides. But Joseph never flinched, never responded, just kept working. There was no badge of rank on his shirt, no medals on his chest, only a small, perfectly folded cloth napkin he sometimes used to wipe the handles of doors no one touched but him. He never joined the staff for coffee breaks. He never stayed past 5. But he always paused for exactly 7 seconds outside the conference room when meetings ran long. Always. One person noticed. Her name was Amira Beltran, a poli-sci intern on her last semester, who saw Joseph in the supply room one day folding the City Hall flag before sunrise with the kind of precision that made her ROTC-hardened spine straighten. She watched his hands, slow, exact, almost reverent. She thought maybe he had been in the service once, but the others said no. Said he was just a leftover from a hiring program decades ago. "He's harmless," they told her. "Just institutional wallpaper." But one afternoon, as she walked past the janitor's closet, she saw him flipping a blueprint of the building's HVAC system and circling airflow points in red pen. "They'll try through the vents," he muttered, not knowing she was there, or maybe knowing exactly. That same week, someone tried to breach City Hall's records room. The camera feed cut out for 16 seconds. Nothing stolen, just a bent lock and a shifted filing cabinet. Tyler Riggins blamed the wiring and called it a nothing event. Joseph didn't say a word, but when Amira passed his cart the next morning, she saw a small pile of door sensors in the trash. New ones were already in place. "They weren't calibrated," he said, then looked back down at his clipboard. Amira grew curious, started watching him like he watched the walls. She noticed how he lingered near exits during fire drills, how he walked the building in looks that matched security suite patterns, how he always stopped beneath the 4th floor vent during mayoral press conferences. No one else paid attention. No one ever does, until they have to. A week later, Amira caught wind of a procurement document that had magically vanished and then reappeared edited in the archive logs. City contractors were skimming millions under falsified bids. She confronted Tyler about it. He laughed in her face. That night, Joseph approached her in the hallway with a manila folder she never saw him carry before. "You didn't get this from me," he said, and walked away before she could open her mouth. Inside was a full schematic of access logs, badge entries, surveillance inconsistencies, detailed, precise, damning. But none of it had his name, not even a fingerprint. Just the scent of old paper and the shadow of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Amira took the risk and called a colonel she once met during a scholarship banquet. Described Joseph, described the way he moved, the way he folded that flag. "You said his name is Joseph Miles?" the colonel asked, voice going stiff. "Don't do anything. We'll confirm and get back to you." The next morning, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up to the south entrance of City Hall. Nobody stepped out right away. But Joseph, already mopping the atrium, paused, placed his mop back in the bucket, and stood straighter than anyone had seen him do in years. His eyes didn't blink, his shoulders didn't slump, and for a brief second, Amira saw it. The way his body moved like he was back on formation, the way silence returned to his face like an old friend. Across the building, Tyler Riggins was laughing in the conference room, spinning some story about a viral video where Joseph tripped over a power cord the week before. "Man's like a walking antique store," he joked, while the SUV engine kept running outside. But something had shifted. In the hallway, Amira held her breath. And down near the lobby, Joseph Miles, janitor, ghost, relic, watched the front door with a look that said he hadn't forgotten how to stand watch. The uniform may have changed, but the mission hadn't. Not for him. Not ever. They say some men leave the battlefield, but the battlefield never leaves them, and by the time the black SUV's door opened, it was already too late to pretend Joseph Miles was just the janitor. Two figures stepped out, crisp uniforms catching the dull morning light, their boots hitting the marble like gavel strikes against arrogance itself. They didn't ask for directions. They didn't check in at the front desk. They walked straight past the security scanner like they'd built the building, and maybe one of them had. Upstairs, Tyler Riggins was still chuckling about old Dusty's greatest hits when the call came in. "You might want to come down to the lobby," said the receptionist, voice shaky. "They're here for him." "Who?" Tyler barked. "The DOD?" But no one laughed this time. In the hallway, Amira stood frozen at the stairwell, heart pounding, because she recognized the insignia on the taller man's shoulder, Joint Special Operations Command. The kind of patch you don't wear unless you've seen things the public never hears about. And Joseph? He didn't look surprised. He looked ready. The two officers reached him in front of the janitor's cart and stopped. One saluted first. The kind of salute you give only to someone who once outranked you. Joseph returned it, flawless, no hesitation. The room stilled. The security guard dropped his coffee. "Major Miles," the taller officer said loud enough for the marble to echo it back, "you've been off our radar too long." Upstairs, Tyler finally emerged from the elevator with two staffers in tow, still mid-sentence, until he saw the uniforms. Saw Joseph standing taller than he ever had. Saw the salute. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, just loud enough. The officer turned to him. "You must be Assistant Riggins." The tone wasn't hostile, but it wasn't asking permission either. "Mind if we borrow your janitor?" The sarcasm cut sharper than anything Tyler had ever said. He sputtered something about building access and administrative protocol, but nobody was listening. Amira stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Eyes locked on Joseph. "You knew," she said quietly. "You've been watching them this whole time." He gave her the faintest nod. They stopped watching their own walls. Someone had to. Then he turned and followed the officers into the mayor's conference room, where the real bombshell dropped. Inside, the Pentagon reps placed a thick folder on the table. Confidential files. Declassified just enough. Documents showing that Joseph Miles was no ordinary vet, no basic grunt with a forgotten name. He had written key sections of a threat detection doctrine still used in active war zones. He had briefed special forces on behavioral surveillance methods before they were taught at Langley. He had been embedded in 3 foreign governments under non-official cover. His last clearance level had been TSSCI with direct-to-JSOC reporting. The mayor, red-faced and stammering, tried to recover. But he mobs floors here. One of the officers didn't even look up. Because he requested quiet duty after losing his team in Kyrgyzstan. Said he wanted to protect something that couldn't be bombed. Outside the glass wall, staffers had gathered, jaws slack. Some filmed with shaky hands. Tyler stood stiff as a board, pale. "You've had a guardian in your building for 8 years, the colonel said calmly. And you laughed at him." Joseph remained silent through it all, as always. But when Amira walked in holding the procurement file he'd given her, the one exposing the contractor fraud, the data breaches, the badge cloning, he finally spoke. "I didn't come here to be seen. I came here because the threat was already inside." He placed his notebook on the table, hand-drawn diagrams of air vents, keycard gaps, camera dead zones. "Your breach didn't happen last week," he said. "It started 4 months ago. You just didn't know how to look." The officers nodded. "This intel is better than anything we've gotten from inside for months," one muttered. He saw it from the janitor's closet. And just like that, Joseph wasn't old Dusty anymore. He was Major Joseph Miles, master of silent warfare, protector of a building too arrogant to know it needed guarding. The mayor tried to spin the story. "We're proud to have such a distinguished veteran among our staff." But it was too late. The staff weren't looking at the mayor anymore. They were looking at the man who had walked their halls in silence for nearly a decade. The man who'd been mocked for moving slowly, only to have mapped the building's security failures better than their IT department. The Pentagon officers left quietly, but not before one of them shook Joseph's hand and said, "When you're ready to come back, the door's open." Joseph just shook his head. "No more uniforms. But I'll leave the place better than I found it." That afternoon, the mayor held a press conference trying to save face. But behind him, every news camera caught the moment Amira Beltran walked past Joseph Miles and gave him the nod. The one you give to someone who never asked to be followed but always led anyway. And when the media asked why the city's janitor had documents sealed under national defense codes, only one answer felt right: because some battles are still being fought, even in marble hallways. They didn't throw a ceremony, not at first. No stage, no speeches, no plaque unveiling. But the next morning, every staffer walking into City Hall found the third-floor hallway roped off, clean top to bottom, floors so polished you could see your own shame in them. At the end of the corridor stood a new bronze sign, Miles Wing, in honor of silent service. Joseph didn't attend the press photos. He was already gone. Left a folded uniform on a chair in the janitor's closet and a typed note that simply read, "Threat neutralized. Walls are yours now. Watch them better." Tyler Riggins was reassigned by week's end. The mayor lost re-election. And Amira? She got an offer from D.C., the kind that starts with clearance required. But long after the scandal faded and the headlines moved on, the building still whispered his name. New hires were told never to laugh at the quiet ones. Because somewhere between mop strokes and blueprints, Joseph Miles had taught them all something the military never stopped knowing: real leaders don't shout. They watch, they wait, and when it matters, they act. And sometimes, they leave behind a hallway that salutes them with every silent step.